Silence surrounds you, the kind that swallows sound whole. But somewhere out there, the dark is about to knock. Tonight, you reflect on a star that knocks, and on ancient words that named it centuries before any telescope could hear it. Picture a dying star collapsing before you into something city-sized, yet heavier than 1,000,000 Earths. A heart beating through the dark. If your heart is ready to reflect, subscribe. A new sign of Allah awaits you every week. You drift into a silence so total, it seems to press against your own skin. Out here, there is no wind to carry a sound, no air to hold it. Only stillness stretching in every direction. Listen closer. Even the silence here has a weight to it, as if space itself is holding its breath. You wait. Second after second, the dark gives you nothing back. Then, something. A tremor at the very edge of hearing, too faint yet to be real. And then the silence breaks. A single deliberate knock sounds through the emptiness, like a fist on a door in the dead of night. It comes again and again. Not random, measured, mechanical, exact. A rhythm has entered the universe, a heartbeat where there should be none. In 1967, on a quiet English hillside, this same rhythm reached a listening dish turned toward the stars. What came through the wires that night made no sense. A signal too perfect to be a star, too strange to be noise. So strange, in fact, that for a fleeting moment, astonished scientists wondered if it might be a message from another world. It was not a message from little green men. It was something far older and far more precise. Every pulse lands exactly where the last one landed, down to a fraction of a second, across trillions of miles. A knock that never misses its beat, in a place with no hand to knock it. And somewhere, long before any telescope existed to hear it, this exact knock already had a name. A name given 14 centuries before anyone thought to listen this closely to the sky. 14 centuries before any telescope existed, a book had already named this very sound. It calls itself the Nightcomer, At-Tariq, and it speaks first before anything else is explained. By the sky and the Nightcomer, the Creator swears an oath by the very thing you have just heard knocking. And what can make you know what the Nightcomer is? The verse pauses, as if to make certain you are truly listening. In the language of that verse, Tariq is not just any visitor. It is the one who arrives at night and knocks. The old grammarian said the root means to strike, to arrive after dark, to knock loud enough that sleep cannot ignore it. A visitor at midnight cannot be ignored. It arrives, it insists, it will be heard. This is the exact word the Creator chooses for what tonight's telescopes would one day call a pulsar's beat. Somewhere far above this very sky, a dead star is already knocking in exactly this rhythm. A midnight visitor that knocks, and a piercing light that cuts the dark. The verse will name both in a single breath. 1400 years ago, no one on earth had reason to name a knock in the sky. And yet, the sky was named for exactly that. Sit with that for a moment, before the reflection moves on. The oath is not idle.
When the Creator swears by something, it is worth every ounce of your attention. The Nightcomer is only the first half of the name. The sky still has more to reveal about what it means to pierce the dark. What kind of star could earn a name like the one who knocks in the dark? Is a question the next reflection is about to answer.
Now look closer at the very thing behind that knock. A star already dying long before its sound ever reached you. Its heart, once vast enough to have burned for millions of years, can no longer hold itself up against its own weight. In one unbearable flash, the star turns itself inside out. Everything it was is crushed toward a single point. What survives the collapse is barely a star at all anymore. Astronomers simply call it a neutron star. On an ancient star chart, its true size becomes almost impossible to believe. Compressed into a ball no wider than a single city, light itself begins to bend around its edge. A single teaspoon of what it's made of would outweigh every mountain on Earth combined. Everything about it seems built for a single purpose: to pierce. Around it, an invisible force begins to gather, a magnetic field trillions of times stronger than anything on Earth. And then, almost imperceptibly, it begins to turn. Not once a second, not 10 times a second, hundreds of times every single second. Faster than a jet turbine, faster than the human eye could ever follow. And from its poles, two beams of light begin to gather, thin, searing, and utterly precise. Beams so powerful they could cross the width of a galaxy and still not fade. This is the piercing star. This is what the sky itself swore by. A dying star reborn as something almost impossible. Around it, the void stretches on, utterly indifferent to the violence at its center.
This is the object the Quran named 14 centuries before any telescope could find it. Hundreds of rotations a second, and not one of them ever falters. And with every turn, those beams sweep the darkness like the beam of a lighthouse no ship will ever see. Somewhere in that sweep, a sound is waiting to be heard. You picture the telescope that first turned its ear toward the void, not to see, but to listen for something no one expected to hear. Every dish like this catches waves invisible to your eye, waves that in 1967 carried a rhythm nobody could explain. You lean beside the scientist's chair in a darkened room, watching an ink pen rest motionless above a blank paper chart. Beyond this room, you sense the void itself, a silence so total that space had kept no rhythm at all for billions of years. Then, without warning, that silence breaks. A signal ripples toward you out of the dark, precise and utterly unmistakable. You watch the pen begin to jump, not randomly, but in a steady mechanical beat, like knuckles striking a door in the dead of night. Astronomers gave this tiny signal a name, CP1919, the first pulsar ever heard, a knock from a star you cannot yet see. Somewhere past that silence, a beam of light sweeps the darkness, once for every single knock you hear. Every knock, every beam reaches you on a rhythm so exact it repeats within a fraction of a second, every single time. You watch the listener lean closer, headphones pressed tight, hearing something that sounds less like physics and more like a heartbeat. This is the sound scientists first mistook for a signal from another civilization, until they understood what was truly knocking. You pull back and see it, a single dying star, spinning in the dark, sweeping its light across the universe like a lighthouse with no keeper. Back in that quiet room, the pen keeps writing before you, a steady, endless rhythm no human hand is making. What you are hearing is not noise. It is a heartbeat the void has kept since long before you were born. And it will not stop.
Look at the light itself. Not the sound now, but the beam that carries it, slicing through black distances too vast for your mind to hold. The Quran names this piercing itself An-Najm al-Thaqib, the star that pierces. Picture the anatomy of this piercing, laid out like an ancient star chart drawn on parchment. Notice how the beam does not shine from the star's spin, but from its magnetic poles, tilted, so each rotation sweeps it past you like a lighthouse lamp. Every sweep of that lamp crosses more emptiness than your imagination can furnish. On the star chart, mark the distance itself, thousands of light years of nothing between the source and the eye that finally catches it. By the time this light reaches you, it has been traveling since before your grandparents' grandparents were born. And still, on the star chart, a final mark waits at the very edge of the page, the small dish that listens.
Somewhere on this same earth, a dish tilts skyward, cupping darkness, waiting for exactly this. What lands in that dish is not myth, it is a signal, precise enough to be timed like a clock. Astronomers came to call this beam sweep a lighthouse effect, the same beam striking your instruments again with every turn. Hundreds of times in a single second, this piercing repeats, an unbroken hail of light across the dark. The word itself already told you this. Thaqib does not mean merely bright. It means to bore through, to burn a hole in what stood in its way. On the star chart, that word finds its picture, a single line driven clean through a field of scattered dark motes. Nothing in that path was built to stop it. It simply arrives. 14 centuries before a single telescope existed to prove it, this piercing already had a name. Two names live on this star chart now. A knock that breaks the silence, and a piercing that breaks the dark. Hold both of these truths a moment longer before you ask the question they are leading you toward. 2 words. That is all the Quran uses to hold both the sound and the sight of this dying star. 1 word for what you hear, 1 for what you see. The first word is at-tariq, from a root that means to strike, to knock upon a door in the dead of night. A traveler who knocks after dark was called tariq, because his footsteps and his knuckles broke a silence that had settled for hours. Now listen again to what astronomers recorded from a dead star spinning in the dark. A beat, arriving at your door, unannounced. The second word is athaqib, from a root that means to bore through, to pierce, to burn a hole clean through the dark. Classical Arabs used this very word for a shooting star bright enough to bore a visible hole through the night. A star so fierce, it seemed to pierce the sky itself.
14 centuries before radio telescopes existed, this was the only vocabulary available. A knock and a piercing light. And yet those two ordinary words, chosen for a night visitor and a shooting star, turned out to describe one single object with total precision. Not two separate signs for two separate wonders. One star, one name for its sound, one name for its light. Radio waves are silent to your ears until a machine translates them into sound. Arabic had no machine. It had only a word, chosen with unsettling accuracy. Two words, revealed in the 7th century, sitting quietly in the Quran for 1300 years before anyone possessed the instruments to test them. Then in 1967, a young astronomer heard the impossible. A beat too perfect to be natural, and a light too sharp to be anything but this. The knocker had a name before science gave it one.
The piercer had a name before a telescope ever caught its beam. Language does not usually anticipate physics, and yet here it did. Subhanallah. Two words for one impossible star, and neither one was ever wrong. But naming the sound and the sight was never the point. The surah is about to ask you why the Creator swears by it at all.
Notice what the Quran does next. It does not simply describe this knocking star. It swears by it.
By the sky
and the nightcomer.
And what can
An
make you
oath
know what is the
spoken
nightcomer?
by the one who
It is
owns
the
the
piercing
sky
star.
itself. In the Quran, when the Creator swears by something in creation, it is never a small thing. It is a summons to look closer. So why this? Why a collapsed star, hidden light years away, spinning in a violence no eye could survive? Why swear by the very object that could split a planet with a single beam? Perhaps because terror, rightly faced, is where reflection begins. A star died to make this thing. What was once a sun 1,000,000 miles wide collapsed into a sphere you could walk across in an afternoon. And yet it did not fall apart. It became more precise, a heartbeat measured to the millisecond. Nothing about this star is careless. Every knock, every beam arrives on time, down to the fraction of a second.
Such precision does not happen by accident. And the Quran does not ask you to marvel and stop there. And what can make you know what the nightcomer is? It is the piercing star. The surah names the star. It defines the star. And then, in the very next breath, it does something else entirely. It stops speaking about a star and starts speaking about you. Think about that shift. From the most violent object in the sky to the quietest thing there is, a single soul. Why would the same verse hold both a dying star's violence and the quiet fate of one person? Perhaps because the same precision that governs a star governs a soul. Nothing overlooked, nothing left to chance. The surah is about to tell you exactly what is watching over you, and it is not a small thing. Stay with this. What comes next changes how you see every quiet moment of your life. The Creator does not leave the question hanging in the silence. After the oath comes the answer, immediate and absolute. Watch the words themselves take shape, not spoken by you, not written by human hand, but etched into memory across 14 centuries. There is no soul, but that it has over it a protector, The word used here is Hafiz, one who watches, who preserves, who lets nothing slip past unseen. Consider what you have already seen tonight. A star that keeps time more precisely than any clock built by human hands. Now consider that the same exactness described in this verse was fixed in place long before that star was ever measured. No soul leaves no gap, no exception, not the soul lost in a crowd, and not the one utterly alone. Even in the hour when no one else is watching, this verse says you are not alone in the dark. Among his names is Al-Hafiz, the preserver, the one who guards what is seen and what is hidden alike.
The same beams that pierce 1,000 light years of darkness to reach a telescope on Earth are matched, verse by verse, by a watch that reaches every heart. Whatever hides in the silence of your own night, it was never truly hidden. But this guardian does not only count what is done, he is also near. Even at the edge of the coldest dark, watch closely. A line of light is already forming. That knock you heard in the silence was never a warning alone. It was a heartbeat, kept by a hand that never tires. Precision, it turns out, was never meant to frighten you alone. It was meant to be trusted. A protector set over every soul, yours included. The silence you once feared is still out there, tonight, right now. But listen again, and it no longer sounds like a warning. The same precision that once felt like dread, a star corpse knocking with perfect mechanical certainty, was never a threat. It was a clue, because immediately after At-Tariq, the knocking star, the same verse says something no telescope could ever measure. There is no soul but that it has over it a protector. Al-Hafiz, the protector, the ever watchful. Appointed, the verse says, over every single soul. Not a watch that judges from a distance, a watch that stays close, in the dark, when no one else is looking. The unseen, Al-Ghaib, was never empty. It was always attended. The same power that spins a dead star hundreds of times a second also counts the quiet hours of your night.
A heartbeat measured in light years, and a heartbeat measured in breaths, watched by the same hand. You were never as alone in that silence as it felt, and the darkness you crossed to get here was never wasted. It was the path that made the light mean something.